Okay.
All right, here we are, Hootin' and Hollering Podcast, episode whatever the fuck number it is.
Yeah, seriously.
We're here with Rik again. I don't know if you remember him from the other episode about escaping prison.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yes, always. So now we're going to be talking about finances. And just
Yeah.
like fiscal responsibility for the normal average person.
Yeah.
So I know, and we, like I said before, we had a long conversation out there in the living room. Of a lot of content. So we'll go over all that again today. So we'll start with whatever disclaimer you want to do.
Yeah, just obviously for anyone who's listening, obviously, like, take this with a grain of salt. I am not a financial expert.
Yeah.
These are just things that I've learned through my own independent research, through my life experiences and everything. So, like, I always recommend to anyone who I ever give any financial advice to, like, you can listen to me, but like, I always recommend doing at least your own research and just seeing if what I'm saying jives with what works for you.
Absolutely.
Because everybody has their own way and their own life, and sometimes something that works really great for me might not be the best thing for you.
And I say the same thing about just the supplements and like just taking care of your body itself. Like what works for me may not work for everybody, because everybody's body composition is different, just like everybody's wallet. Everybody's wallet's different.
Exactly. Everybody's situation is completely different.
Exactly. And and that goes with just judging people too, because I'm big on that too. Like, you don't know what somebody has going on at home. So, and that's for the guy upstairs to judge. So whatever, but we're here to help. And with any type of advice that we could talk about, to maybe get you out of a rut, or, if you feel like you're stuck,
just maybe change perspective, right?
That's true too.
Perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, this is, I was looking into that, but these guys have actually looked into it already. Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
It sounds like something that could work.
I think I want to start with, because I was reading the bullet points to you before, and everybody knows I carry my own little notebook. I don't come unprepared completely. So, but I think the biggest thing that would resonate is like financial situations that you find yourself in, to where like, you're like, man, I wish I could save money, but I don't have money to save.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget, like, there are little tricks, like a lot of mainstream stuff, and a lot of one that everybody brings up is like, if you don't buy that coffee every morning, you'll save a lot of money, which is true.
Which is,
but you need that little thing. Like, everybody has those little things, and you're sure you have to make sacrifices, but don't go completely sacrificing everything just to.
So a great example using coffee, right? So like my sibling likes to go out to Dunkin', all this other things. Hey, listen, I like to go out for coffee too, right? But you don't realize, or at least I didn't, right? I'm not paying attention. I just swipe my card. I know I have the money in my account. I can just swipe my card and get the coffee, right? But when you do what I call a financial reconciliation that my wife and I do every month, you'd be amazed at how quickly 10 cups of coffee adds up to a lot of money, right?
Oh, yeah.
So one way you can save is if you go to the grocery store, buy coffee. Yes, you're probably going to spend roughly the same amount, but the difference is that when you spend that amount, the coffee lasts so much longer. So I bring my coffee to work every morning.
I do the same thing every morning.
And that's a way, in a coffee example, of you saving. Because believe it or not, you'll be amazed at how much you actually will save.
Yeah.
Just a very simple
Even
way.
if you have to spend a little bit more money to get like extra coffee, it might last you like a whole month.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And, and making a pot, using a pot, right? Like you make a pot, it's hot. You enjoy your hot coffee. Okay, cool. But like a lot of people, once it gets cold, they might dump it. I don't dump it. I make iced coffee.
Yeah, you know absolutely.
So now I'm
you can't
just
waste that.
using
that's
that
my
resource.
black gold.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So, and listen, you got to just splurge in different ways, right?
Exactly.
In ways that are not going to impact you financially, right?
Yeah. Because
if I go buy a Lamborghini, right? I can buy anything with a credit card. I have good credit. I could go get a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Why would I do that though?
Yeah.
That is not going to help me in any way, shape, or form. That is not being responsible. That is only going to hurt me.
Absolutely.
And trickle down. It's a trickle down effect, right?
So like, I know there's certain ways, because like nobody likes to sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody likes to. If everybody could get what they want without sacrificing, I'm pretty sure that would actually be everybody's game plan.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, like when it comes to sacrifice, and that's where like I agree with you. And when it comes to like stopping the coffee and whatnot, and it will add up. There's other expenses. You know what I'm saying? But like, where I am at, like when it comes to like just taking care of your health and whatnot from a health aspect, like people say, how do you afford those supplements?
Yeah,
the
supplements
total
are
human,
pretty expensive.
Like Total Human I take, and I did a video on it, on how, different all natural, all whole food supplements. And that shit is expensive, because here in America, if there's a healthier option, it's usually the more expensive option, which is sort of fucked up. It's sort of backwards.
It's just the, that's the way, unfortunately, it is.
Exactly.
I think you got to think, and it sounds a little conspiracy theorist, but like obviously there are very large corporations out there that are invested into the non-healthy foods,
Absolutely.
right? And that's
Just like
why
big
the
pharma.
way it is, you know what I mean?
A patient cured is a customer lost.
Yes.
Always.
Oh yeah.
So like, but when you think about it, like people ask me like, how do you get that total human? That's $120 something a month. Well, look at the sneakers I wear.
Yeah.
Now this isn't an ad at all. I will give you a heads up, but I love Skechers.
Yeah.
It's easy. They're comfortable. Yeah. Who gives a shit what my feet look like?
Unfortunately, I have very large feet and I don't really get a choice in sneakers, but
yeah.
But I also refuse to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on sneakers. I'm not a sneaker person, right?
Exactly.
But if I were, then there has to be some compensation, right?
Give and take.
Always, right?
With everything.
So I think a really good way for someone starting off, college student, high school student, whatever, right? Acorns. My brother used Acorns. You're not going to save a
app,
ton,
right? It's like where your extra change.
So, and obviously this is not an ad towards them. I'm sure there's other apps that do the same thing.
Yeah.
But essentially it just rounds up your expense, right? So if you're that person that's constantly buying coffee, right, and that's like your vice and you're going to accept that, well, now your $2.50 coffee is going to cost you $3.50 is going to be saved. And I know it sounds like it's not a lot,
but it's something.
You got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yep.
You got the important part is starting.
Yeah. And having that mindset of knowing you're doing something.
Yeah.
You know, because like when you go through life without doing anything and all you're doing is bitching and complaining, you know, life doesn't work like that. The squeaky wheel does not get the oil in real life. You know, like
because nobody cares.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, nobody cares because you know what? Everybody's got something.
Exactly right.
Something. So
100%.
You can complain all you want, but until you take the initiative to change your situation, it's not going to change.
And we were just talking about certain situations before we started hitting a record about some people that we know and whatnot. Like, and that goes for anybody that anybody may know. Like, you're always going to have that one person that's like, man, whoa,
they're Debbie Downer. They complain.
The world's against them. Yes. You know, it's like stop.
It's like if you turn that person and say, well, what are you doing about it? Right?
Yeah.
You don't like your job, change your job.
Yeah.
You don't like where you live,
but I can't.
Move.
I can't. Like, you know, like, see, like
you're the only one holding you back.
Exactly.
Right?
You know,
because yes, change can be scary, but it can also be really beneficial
and necessary.
You know, so
yeah,
sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I would say that's a good way to save. Allocate a certain amount of money, right? Like if you're that person that likes to eat out, like, and listen, I'm guilty of that too, right?
Out, man. I love when someone else cooks for me.
You can very easily see, here's what I have coming in every month. Here are my expenses every month.
Yep.
You can subtract the two totals. See, this is what I have left over, right?
Yep.
You obviously want to have a good estimation of, you know, other not planned bills, right? Like, so maybe grocery shopping as an example.
Yeah.
Gas,
like flexible
right?
Ones
so
that
you want to allocate some money to that. But if you can allocate a set amount from every check and put it into an account, that will start to grow.
Yeah. Whether it be 50 cents on the dollar, you know,
and from my experience and what I've learned, the best thing that people can do who are starting off, and I'm not talking, I mean, you could even say high school students, right? Because like it's all about mindset. It's like what is important. You know, you're not a high school student forever, right? You eventually become an adult.
Some people are stuck in that high school mindset.
Absolutely. But you really should have a saving of $1,000. That should be your starting base. If you have $1,000 saved, that is for emergencies only.
Exactly.
And like you have to understand the concept of emergency, right? An emergency is not, oh my God, I overspent, so now the filet mignon I have to borrow for my $1,000. No, that's $1,000 is like my car just got damaged by something. I have to pay my deductible.
Yep.
Okay. I don't have that money for the month, but now I have my $1,000 savings. And the goal is like, once you take from that, you need to get back to that as soon as possible.
You need to replace it. Yes. Yeah. Because you got to, then that sort of goes hand in hand in just self-discipline. Like I talked about in videos before, just about taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
That also goes for your finances too. If you don't have that self-discipline to put that money back, because if you think about it, that emergency like fund that you put to the side, you're essentially borrowing from it like a loan from yourself.
Yes.
You better pay yourself back.
Yes.
I would feel so much better paying myself back with interest to myself than to somebody else.
That is a huge, important topic. That is a change in mindset that if you change, anyone out there, anyone listening changes that mindset of paying yourself first, you will already become richer.
See, and that's what we're talking about before too, about just having that mindset. If you have that mindset, like, yes, I deserve this. I worked hard for this. I'm going to go for this, or I already have what I want. If you're thankful and you feel like you're blessed already, things just seem to get easier too.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? With time.
Yes.
You know, like if you act like you already have it, you already made it.
Yeah. Like when I, as an example, when I get my paycheck, I forcibly save an amount. And when I save that amount, I don't view it as a savings. I view it as paying myself. Right?
Exactly.
Because now I have that money to do with whatever I need to do with.
Yep.
And obviously my mindset has shifted now where I'm not saving $300 so I can go buy 3 video games or whatever.
Exactly,
I'm using it to achieve a much larger goal.
Yeah. You got your eyes set on stuff like me, like where you want to invest into something and get a significant return on your investment.
Yes.
And you're willing to bite that bullet, hold that money as long as you can until you find that right chance or that right opportunity to dump it and then get that return.
So I know one of the talking points, right? Is the savings account stuff, right?
Yeah, I wanted to get into that. Yeah.
So when you're saving money and you are paying yourself, right? What do you think a bank does with your money when you put it in a savings account?
They're paying themselves.
They use your money to make more money.
Exactly.
Right? So now I go, hey, I'm me. I'm going to put $1,000 in my bank account. You go to the bank, same time. You go, I need $1,000 loan.
Mm-hmm.
They go, here's his money. Take it.
Yep.
But you are going to have to pay us a large percentage on that.
Yep.
My $1,000 that's sitting in my account that's not really sitting in my account, I'm earning maybe 1% on.
If you're lucky.
If I'm lucky.
Yeah, 1%.
Probably not even 1%.
High.
So why would I do that when there's other options out there where my $1,000 can turn, and it's not going to be a crazy amount, right? Because nobody's going to pay you a 50% return.
Exactly.
That's just unrealistic.
You're living in dreamland if you think you're going to get rich off $1,000 right off the bat instantly.
Because logically thinking, right? Would you do that?
No.
Would you, if somebody gave you $1,000, would you promise to give them $1,500?
Absolutely not.
No. Right? You're going to be like, you know, I'll buy you $1,000. I'll throw you an extra $10. I'll buy you a coffee. I'll buy you breakfast.
Thanks
something,
for the gesture.
Right? You know what I mean?
You know, like
as a, here's your money back and thanks for, you know, helping me out in a tight spot. Right? So a bank and any financial entity is they're a business. They are an organization. They are going
have to make money
somehow. The most money they can off of you. So you need to have the same mindset as the bank, right? You want your money to work for you when you're sleeping. You want to make as much money as possible.
You want it to
because
be passive,
realistically,
for sure.
Who wouldn't, right? Yep. Why would you want to have money and just have straight money? If somebody told you, if you take your $3,000 and you could turn it into $10,000, who's going to go, no, I'm cool with 3.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no, absolutely. You know? Especially if you don't need that money right then and there for any type of emergency, like real emergency, then you want that to sit there and grow.
So, and that's where different savings accounts,
like everybody brings up CDs, you know, and I know that's like a set time period.
Yes.
With a high yield.
That's the problem. And it realistically, it's not like there are other matching yields, right? There's other matching percentages where you can have more access to your money in emergency.
Okay.
So as an example, right? This is what I started doing. Okay. So I have, it's a little over $3,300 right now.
Okay.
As my emergency money. Okay. I was able to get past that $1,000. So the simple step, just to give a little background, right?
Yeah.
Is when you're first starting off your financial journey, right? The goal is you should have $1,000 of emergency money savings.
Yeah.
When you're at the point where we're at, and listen, I'm behind too because I've had to learn a lot and get to where I'm at now.
Life happens.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is to have at least like 6 months of your expenses.
Yeah, that's what they say. 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months, because at the end of the day, your job, your employer, no matter what you think, how you think, you're replaceable. And they will replace you. It doesn't matter if you're in a union. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they want you gone. You're gone. And guess what? Somebody's going to fill that role.
Absolutely.
And now you're SOL, and it's like, well, how do I pay my bills?
Yeah. And
nobody's going to pay.
And if you're sitting there with nothing in your hands, then that was something that you sort of fucked up on.
So there's different kinds of ways of investing your money, right? You also want to pay it. You not only want to pay attention to where you're investing it, but on the return, right? Okay. So there's like the S&P 500 as an example. So Warren Buffett invests in the S&P 500. He's been doing it for years.
Yep.
He's extremely rich.
Yep.
One of the richest people on this planet, right?
Yep.
So taking from different people's perspectives, right? Like if you want to learn how to build a house, you don't go to an accountant. No. You go to a carpenter,
exactly,
or a foreman, or someone with that, contractor, someone with that experience, right?
Yeah.
So obviously he's doing something right.
Yep.
So you want to start to emulate these people.
And there's nothing wrong with copying off of people. People always think like they got to come up with a new way or whatnot. It's like, no. Like take the time-tested ways that actually work and just copy off of them.
So
just copy off of them.
The S&P is more expensive, though. You have to purchase the S&P, and I believe right now it's a little over $400 a share of the S&P.
Okay.
But that is one way. And an average, I think it's over like a 5-year span, you earn about 10% on your money. So think $1,000, you're going to earn 100. 10,000, you're going to earn 1,000. Like on average. And that's been consistent for years.
So it's relatively, I wouldn't say safe because nothing is safe.
No, listen,
it's relatively
stable.
Yeah.
That's when you get to a more stable point, I would say. So like what I'm doing is I use Charles Schwab and I invest in a mutual fund, right? Okay. So it grows steadily. It earns on average about 4%. A year. But this is for my emergency money,
which is not better than a 1%.
Yeah, exactly.
Than sitting in an account.
Which realistically, a savings account, right? You're not even earning 1%. You earn actually less.
That's
so
true,
I'm earning on average 4%, but it also fluctuates. It doesn't really drop below 4%. It more so fluctuates in a positive manner because it fluctuates based on inflation and stuff like that. So I can earn a higher percentage.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
But that's my emergency money that I do not touch.
It just sits there. Yeah.
It's all, I'm going to set it aside anyway, and it's going to continuously sit there. So why would I set it in a savings account that earns pretty much nothing? Maybe 10 cents, 20 cents in a year, $1 if I'm lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it in there for half a year, and I've already earned, I want to say like $40+.
Hell yeah!
Which like I said, it doesn't sound like near 40
bucks. Yes, if it was sitting in a regular savings.
It would have been doing the same thing.
Yep.
Either which way, right?
Yeah.
So now it's there. Granted, it's not like a bank account where you could go and I can just quickly transfer.
Yeah,
no. You know what I mean? There's usually a day lag, but that's also why like it's really important to have a hold of like your credit cards, right? Like credit cards are also for emergencies.
Yeah.
You have to wrap your mind and your mindset around like a credit card is not for fun. A credit card is not to go out and do this.
And that's the one thing I will say, like when it comes to credit cards, like my past, I've said in the My Story series that I let out, I'll be letting episode 2 out or part 2 out soon, where I actually dive deep into a little bit of a bankruptcy that I've been through.
Yeah.
As a young guy, you know, granted, there was nothing attached to that bankruptcy for me besides my parents' house.
Yeah.
But that was a life lesson that I learned because I watched their mistakes.
Yeah.
And I learned from their mistakes and my own for even signing that fucking thing.
Yes.
But, you know, when I was watching that, I was like, all right, cool. Let me make a little bit of smarter decisions. What I thought were smarter decisions. I wound up after the bankruptcy, you know, it got discharged. As soon as it gets discharged, all these credit card companies start attacking you with all these spam mail saying, hey, now that your bankruptcy is done, you qualify for this card. You qualify for that card. So like a dummy, and granted, maybe because there was no other debt of mine attached to it, I didn't really realize the severity at that age of what bankruptcy was. Now, I'm not excusing, you know, my naiveness, but, you know, literally just being that young, I don't think I realized the importance of it. So when I went through it, I was like, oh, well, I could get this Capital One credit card, you know, and at that time, like I've mentioned before, working at Walmart after high school, really just hitting a dead end at that point. You know, it's like, what am I doing? I'm not going to school. I'm working. I'm just becoming like just a regular worker, you know, which there's nothing wrong with that. But like, I knew deep down inside, I need to do something else. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I wound up getting this credit card because going from paycheck to paycheck, I couldn't afford it at all. I was running out of money before payday all the time.
Yep.
I was buying like 50-cent baguettes and a coffee from McDonald's, and that was my lunch almost every day.
Yeah.
Way back when, because I just simply couldn't afford it anymore.
Had, right?
You know, and so I got that credit card. You know, I would use it irresponsibly.
Yeah,
Just like you were saying, for, I would buy lunch, I would buy this. I'm like, oh, I could afford this now. I could afford, this sandwich and whatnot. And I would just use it, and I maxed it out. It was only $300, but to me, it was like $300 back then. It was a little bit more. I was like, oh shit, I fucked up, And what did I do? Instead of actually paying that off, and I was paying the minimum payment, and I saw other credit cards that I could get.
Yeah.
So I wound up getting a Walmart card, and it snowballed. And I'm like, holy fuck,
and
what's
then next
going
thing
on
you know,
here?
you're 50 grand in debt, and it's like, well, my minimum payment, if I total between all the credit cards, is my entire check.
Exactly. And that's what happened.
How do I get out of debt?
I dug myself a hole
right
after I already claimed bankruptcy. As a young guy, I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? And that's when I found that,
That's why all the things that we're discussing are extremely important to implement early on.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, listen, I'm not saying that if you're in that situation, it's not possible to get out. You need to do your research.
Oh, it is possible.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Obviously, you got out, right?
Yep.
You did it. You need to do as much research as humanly possible. And honestly, like, I would say even calling the companies is not necessarily a bad move either.
And that's the one thing that I didn't do that I wish I sort of did, because you could sort of negotiate with these people too, depending on who it is. But a lot of the times you can negotiate it down a little bit. Some people hire third-party companies to do that for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're sort of putting yourself in a rut there too, because now you're paying them to negotiate something that you can do. So now you owe them money, you owe the credit card money, stuff like that. But that's when I took that debt consolidation loan out, thinking I was being smart. I'm just going to put all my debt into one loan and just pay that off, and I'll be set. I'll be squared away, because I was so focused on my credit at a young age, because I saw what was going on with my parents. And after bankruptcy, it destroys your credit. I was down to like a fucking like a low 400 score, which is like insane. So I was like, all right, cool. What did I do after that? I paid it all off, but they didn't require me to close the cards out. So I started spending money on the credit cards at the same time. And then it was worse, and then I had to go about it again and worked my ass off, did a bunch of overtime, paid off a bunch of shit as much as I could. And then I squared it all away, squashed everything, and then restarted again. The only thing is you have to be willing to put in that work to do that. But back to the credit cards. Now I have like 3 credit cards, and they're usually just sitting there, with basic balances, nothing crazy. But I found the only reason why you should be using credit cards besides emergencies is to build your credit. And now the only way to build your credit that I found out, because now I'm back, I think I'm either close to 8. I was just over 8 a little while ago. And then I forget I used it on vacation, and then it bumped back down under 8 a little bit,
which is realistically is fine.
It's going to happen.
Listen, my credit score has never been over 8, but realistically, you don't really need it to be.
You don't be. If you, like with me, I have my house, I have a truck, I have no business thinking I need anything else other than that.
Because some people over 7, you can pretty much get a loan for anything.
Exactly. So, and that's what I keep
trying to. It'll be
very
rare for you to be denied for something.
Exactly.
I get, my credit score is over 7, right?
Yeah.
I want to say 730, 750 range, right?
Yeah, I think mine's
it's
around. It's
always floated around there. I get every single week, at least probably 2 or 3 letters from credit card companies that I obviously shred up, right? I believe, I mean, I guess if you count my wife as well, we each have a credit card through our credit union, right? So
same here.
So a big deal with credit cards is you really got to pay attention to what is the interest on it. Your average Capital One, Chase,
huge, like 28%.
It's like 25% plus. With a credit union, I'm looking at 14.
Yeah, mine's around 12.
It's about half,
which is great.
That is a huge difference,
and it means more because that is your credit union. You have more reputation with them, especially if you have most of your banking through that credit union. You have more reputation with them. They're a little bit more willing. They're a little bit more willing to lend that money for different things, or starting a business and stuff like that.
Yes. So the way I look at it, and I've had points in my life already, and I'm not that old, where I've had no credit card debt at all, like pretty much no debt.
It feels great. I've hit that point twice.
It's amazing
without the house,
how fast you can save money and how much you can do.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's so much better to live life that way. And listen, it's like anything else. When you go and you buy a house, right? A house requires certain things, and of
Yep.
you, right?
Yep.
So like if you need to mow your lawn, whether you pay someone to do it or you buy a lawnmower,
Either way,
you
gonna
might
have
now
to
you have
spend
to
money.
yeah, you're gonna have to spend money. Like you're never gonna not have to spend money. The
Exactly.
important thing is to make sure your debt is manageable.
Exactly.
Right? And not I don't mean manageable as in I'm gonna pay minimum payments. I mean manageable as in I'm gonna clear this debt in like 3 months.
Yeah, that's
know
how
what I
you
mean?
have to look at things before you even swipe that credit card. Unless, and that's what I was saying too. Like if you're building your credit, I found that my credit shot up like crazy, dude. As soon as I got this one credit card from my bank, Chase, I went with that Sapphire card,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not a big credit card. I didn't need that credit card.
I think I
But
have like 2.
But
I think
one
I
of
two,
one of
maybe 3.
I forget who it was. Somebody brought it up. They were like, you have to get one that gives you rewards. And I'm not really technologically smart, and I was like, let me see that.
If you're going to be using it, that is the way to do it.
And get this.
Think of it, that's the same concept as the return on your money.
Exactly. Because like it doesn't cost you anything to get those rewards points unless you're using it to begin with.
Yeah.
So I started using that card after I realized, all right, now I'm on the right track. Yeah. I was like, let me see. Because now at this point, everything's stable. Mm-hmm. I'm managing everything perfectly. Why would I need another credit card?
Yeah.
But then we realized like we're starting to travel a little bit more. Yeah. And I hate flying. You know what I'm saying? I like to drive everywhere.
I'd rather drive.
But if you're telling me that I can use this credit card for basic expenses, and for every purchase, there's a rewards match of 1 for every dollar, which is great. If you go out to a restaurant, you use it, it's an extra 3 points for every dollar. Mm-hmm. And then if you use it for travel, like hotels, flights, and stuff like that, it's 6 times the amount for every dollar.
Yeah.
Now, wouldn't you know it, with the Chase, I have over like 120,000 points right now, which I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck that is. Somebody's like, oh yeah, you have 120,000. That's great. Until I went to go book a flight for Vicky. And now it doesn't cost me a goddamn thing. It was money that I already spent. And that when I'm using this credit card, I use it like, say when we're out dinner, I'm like, okay, I can pay. I have the cash for it. I can pay debit. But why don't I use it on my credit card?
That's the key, though.
Get the 3 times points for the dining.
Yes.
And then pay it off immediately.
Yep, that's the key.
Literally, I swipe it. Yep. As she's going there and she swipes it, she brings me back the receipt. I'm already on my phone paying off that purchase.
And that's another great aspect, too, of like, I get it. We're young. We want to travel. We want to do all these things. Yeah. But like, sometimes you have to make those sacrifices to not do that, right?
Absolutely.
Think about it this way. And I'm sure this has happened to you. It's happened to me, right? There's been times where I've gone on vacation and you go on vacation, you're having a blast.
Yes.
But you start swiping your card and you start thinking,
oh, yeah,
crap. When I get home, I've got $700 on here. Exactly. And some people, it might be more. It might be like $3,000. It might be $5,000.
It was a little over $1,000.
So now you're like, when I get home, I have to focus on paying this off.
Yep.
Think how much better you would feel if you knew that your entire vacation was complete. Think about it this way. Even easier way to picture this. You go on vacation and someone pays for the entire thing, everything for you. Mm-hmm. And you come home and you just get nothing. There's nothing.
Back to work.
You're back to work.
Yeah.
You need to do that for yourself because no one's going to do that for you, right?
Absolutely.
So if you go on vacation and this is all paid for, 100%. My flight's been paid for.
Yeah.
Not credit card. I saved up the money.
Yep.
And I'm treating myself. My flights are paid for. My food is paid for the entire time. When I come home, there is no extra bills.
Exactly.
That, I can tell you, is so much better because now there's no added stress to your life.
Yep. And I will say, like, some investors, some of these, tycoons, I'll call them, because they're billionaires and millionaires. A lot of them say, don't be afraid of debt, this and that. That's true. But like we were just saying, you have to know how to manage it.
Yes.
Okay. So like when it comes to being debt free, though, like that Dave Ramsey guy, he's all about being debt free.
I like some of his aspects. I'm more of a mix, right?
Exactly. Because I'm a hybrid.
You have Dave Ramsey, who is literally like, you shouldn't buy a house until you have the cash saved up for the house and it's completely paid off. Yeah. And you're literally, you don't have credit cards. You pay for everything in cash.
Yep.
And like, I'm not saying that that's bad.
If you could do that, then that's great. You know what I'm saying? But
I don't
realistically,
think that's realistic.
The modern world that we live in, it's not like it used to be. And nothing against Dave Ramsey. I almost feel like that's like the advice that our grandfathers would tell us back in the day. You save up the money, you work hard for it, you buy it outright. And
if you look at him, it's obviously worked for him. And
exactly.
He's got extra money vested and he's been doing things and he learned from his lessons, and some of his perspective may work for some people. It may not. Mm-hmm. But here's a great example of leveraging debt, right? I have a house.
Yep.
I had to buy a zero-turn mower just because of the way my hill is. If I didn't have a zero-turn mower, I was going to
I've
be
been
in
debating
trouble
that. Yeah.
mowing. I love my zero-turn mower,
Yeah.
but it's expensive. It was $3,800, right?
Oh, yeah.
But here's how I leveraged debt. I owe $3,800, right? I do have to make minimum payments on it, but the minimum payments are what is manageable, right?
Yep.
So it's like $80
Yep.
a month, completely manageable with my finances,
Yep.
right? But 4 years, no interest. I have 4 years to pay that mower
That's ridiculous.
off,
And you make
right?
an extra payment or something here and there, it cuts it down even more.
So this is where I start to apply Dave Ramsey's aspects into my life, right? And listen, once I get out of this debt, I think I will be at that point now where I'll be back to even again.
Yep.
And this was how I was in an old house before I sold the old house, made a profit,
Yes.
moved to my new house, which obviously required additional expenses, right?
Yep.
But then in the old house, when I was at that point where I was like debt free, I had like over $10,000 plus easily saved up.
Yep.
And I will get there with this as well, right? So you have to take into account, okay, here is my total debt on each and every credit card you have, whatever, which hopefully you don't have a lot of them. You really don't. You really don't need it, right?
No.
Then you need to look at, okay, when do I owe this money by? Because, right, my 4 years of borrowed money is great, but at the end of 4 years, if it's not paid off, you get charged back to interest for 4 years. And that's a lot of money that I don't want to pay, right? So now I also have credit card debt, right? The credit card debt that we have is currently earning interest. It is very manageable. Like we're talking like, I want to say maybe like a little over $4,000, right?
Okay.
I'm going to be getting a retro check soon anyway, which will completely clear that debt. So I'm not even worried, and we've been paying it, and we're paying it down anyway. So I might actually have a little left over that now I can pay down on other debt. So you want to use what Dave calls the snowball effect, right?
Yeah.
You usually start with your smallest, because you're getting, it's the same concept with working out, right? If you lose 5 pounds, but your goal is to lose 200 pounds,
you can't focus on the 200.
You can't focus. You got to 5, 10,
I did 5
20,
this week.
50. Oh my God. Now like I'm 100 pounds lighter. That's phenomenal, right? Well, now I'm $2,000 later. I'm $1,000 later, whatever.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it will trickle down. You just need to make sure you're allocating your money accordingly so that you can pay that off, right?
Yep.
You always want to be able to pay a hell of a lot more than what the minimum payment is.
Yeah, because in the past, I've maxed out credit cards in the past where I'm paying like $300 a month for a credit card that I completely maxed out, right?
And guess what? That's probably your minimum payment. And now we're getting into even more financial concepts. So the whole point of financial literacy, which I'm going to backtrack a tiny bit to explain that. Yeah. So financial literacy is your knowledge of finance, building your knowledge, understanding these principles, because guess what? Nobody's going to explain it to you.
No, so there's no classes for this in high school or in
and
lower.
That's one of the big problems. And there's another person I've research, which is Robert Kiyosaki, and that's his big thing. Is he talks about how he wrote a very famous book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, probably one of the best. I think it is the best finance top selling book, whatever. Which I highly recommend everyone to read.
Yeah,
hey, listen, it's not gonna teach you to be filthy rich. It's not like here's my secret. There's secretly a check in every book, and here you go. You have a ton of money.
Yeah,
that's not how it works. It's changing your mindset so that you can start working towards being rich, right? Because now if you have zero debt, and you're making even $1,500 a month. Well, if you're saving, let's just say $1,300 of your $1,500 and use $200 for all these other menial expenses, in a year, you're going to have well over $12,000.
Easily.
2 years, you're going to have a lot more than that. Now, if you're also making your money work for you within that time, you're going to have significantly more. And taking advantage of something like compound interest, right?
Yeah,
is huge, right?
That is
because
huge.
That's what
if you can find compound interest accounts.
That's what the banks do. That's what the pension companies do, right? Like you and I have pensions.
Yes,
that money's not just sitting there. It's making the state money.
Absolutely,
that's what they do in every state. That's what all the banks do.
And why not do it for
yourself?
Insurance
companies. So if you start thinking like a large corporation organization that wants to make the most money, you will start to make the most money.
Exactly.
And that is the key. That is the key, because you will now learn how to not only manage that, but leverage it, right?
Yeah.
Which is what I'm doing in my example with the lawnmower.
Yeah.
I'm borrowing $3,800.
Yeah.
And I'm paying $3,800.
Exactly.
But I'm not paying it up front.
Yeah.
I'm paying it over time when
And
it's
you're not
convenient
getting,
for me.
yeah, you're not getting hit with anything else,
Yes.
you know?
So, and now back to your example, right? You're paying $300 a month, right?
Yeah.
You have things called principal and interest, right?
Yeah.
Principal is the total amount of what you owe.
Yep.
Interest is the
extra
percentage
shit
on that money that you owe. That's how they make their money.
Exactly.
Right? So simple math, $1,000 you owe. For every $1,000, you pay 10% interest. So now they make $100 every time you make a payment. So if your minimum payment is $300,
they're making $30.
100 goes to them.
Or 100, yeah.
200 is actually paying off your total debt. So now you're down to $800, but they're still making money.
Exactly.
So when you start to actually add the total, your $1,000 that you borrowed is actually you're paying $1,500, whatever the
exactly.
I'm making up a
and
number,
a lot of
but
credit
that's
card
what you
companies,
have to think of.
A lot of credit card companies, the interest is on daily rates.
Yes.
Like every day that you don't pay it back. It's not like every month. It's not like, oh man, it's 26%.
That's why you have to pay attention, because like APR is annual percentage rate, right?
Exactly.
Annual meaning could mean quarterly. It typically means within a year, right?
Yes.
So you're paying 25% within a year.
Exactly.
Right? So, but 25% of a lot of money starts to add up very quickly. And now you can't make your minimum payments, and it takes away from your ability to pay over to get yourself under debt. So I don't know for any viewers, but if you have a loan, it's amazing. Like I know for like my student loans, you're making these payments and you feel like it doesn't seem to be going down.
Yeah.
When you reach a certain point though, where you're paying so much more on principal than you are in interest, and that kind of lever flips, it goes like
it's inspiring too when you see that, because like, and that's what I was getting to, because it was to a point where my minimum payment on this credit card that I maxed out because of, you know, like very irresponsible, you know, reasons, you know, it was $300. But even though as time went down and I was wiping it out and doing the right thing before we got ready to buy a house, I was still making those $300 payments on it, no matter what that minimum payment was.
Yes.
So after I wiped it out and I started using it again, like if the minimum payment was $150, I said, you know what? I told myself, if I could afford the $300 before to just manage it, to keep it from coming back on me, I could pay $300 now, even though it's only $150.
Yeah.
I'll pay the $300, and then that extra $150 goes straight to the principal.
Yes. Yep.
And then that brings the interest down, just like when you're paying a mortgage. Most people don't know when you make that extra payment a year from the origination of your loan, anyways. If you're hypothetically speaking, you get a 30-year mortgage, you make an extra payment every year from that very first year. Yeah. Your 30-year mortgage now goes down to like a 22, 23-year mortgage.
It can go down as low as like 17. I think you pay it off in 17 years.
Exactly. You know,
and that is huge. Payments. And you have to remember that, I mean, that's a whole entire different concept, because now you build what's called home equity.
Yeah.
And you can borrow from your home equity.
And that's what I plan on doing if I find the right real estate opportunity.
Yes.
Because why wouldn't you leverage? I know it's, you know, some people
leveraging.
Yeah, exactly. You're leveraging your debt.
Yes.
So it goes back to
or in this case, leveraging your equity, right?
Exactly. So like, you know, like if we see an opportunity where we're like, okay, we really like this real estate property, though it's not the time to buy. Honestly, my personal opinion, I don't think it's the time to buy real estate right now.
Yeah.
Like in this current situation.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for it to pop. I'm waiting for it to pop.
Hopefully. There's too many variables. There's so many variables. There's a lot of mixed arguments that are saying it's not going to pop.
I know.
The inflation's just going to come down.
We just got to sit here with the popcorn.
Stay,
you know, like, but we're waiting. So if the opportunity comes up, and I've always been somebody, and especially lately, if there's an opportunity that pops up, I don't want to let it go, because you never know when it could come back around.
So I have a lot on this.
Okay.
So I wouldn't necessarily say it's not the right time to buy.
Yeah.
Technically, any time can be the right time, right? And I'll give you an example, right? If you want to buy a home, right? Okay, that's what you're looking to do. I'm looking to buy a piece of real estate property where I can make money on this.
Exactly.
Now, there's several factors to consider when you borrow from your home equity. It's not just, hey, here's your money.
Yeah.
There is a loan percentage on it, which the loan percentages are high. So there is a lot of calculation that needs to be done when you purchase it, right?
Yep.
When you purchase it, you have to look at not only the overall cost of the home and what that interest is going to be, right? You have to look at the borrowed money and what that interest is
is
going
going
to
to
be.
be.
So now when you take those totals, right? We're going to use soft numbers to make life easier.
Yeah.
Let's say that total is $3,000. Well, if you rent it to someone and you're only making 1,500, well, now you're under 1,500.
Exactly.
And that's a problem, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Now where does that money come from?
Exactly.
That comes from you. So you have to make sure that the numbers line up, and that's one of the ways I've been able to practice and kind of get a concept, change the perspective of looking for a good deal. And I didn't even realize I did this myself in my life already. And
Really?
and I'll get into that.
Get into it. Let's go.
There's a game that Robert Kiyosaki came out with. It is expensive, but I think you have to remember when you're buying things like a book, a finance book, when you're taking a course, that is also considered paying yourself because you're investing
into yourself. Absolutely.
That's not a bad thing. It just has to be manageable, right?
Yes.
It has to be. I can't go take a 10 grand course. I know I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I can go buy a $25 book. And as long as I learn something from it that helps me, then it was a positive investment and it didn't set me back, right? And I'm building a strong foundation just like you do with a house. You have to start with the foundation sucks, the house is going to fall apart,
absolutely.
Right? So he has a game called Cash Flow and I bought it, right?
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that. Like a computer game.
No, it's a board game.
What? All right, cool.
We'll play it. You start to pick up what a good deal is. So as an example, my first house I ever bought, all right, family situation aside, I was buying a house with me and my wife as one party, my dad as the other party. I saw a house for sale in a neighborhood I really liked. I saw the price. I was like, okay, that's not bad. We could definitely afford that between 3 incomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I offered them asking and got asking, and asking was undervalued. Why? Those people needed to move ASAP. They were building another home. They didn't have the luxury of playing games with me and tit for tat crap. They were like, yep, we got what we needed. We're good. We're out.
Yep.
That is an example of a good deal, right? So here's the thing with interest rates, right? They change.
Yes.
So if you buy a house now, yes, I get it. It's 7.6 a year. 2 years ago, it was what, 3 something?
Yeah, I secured it at 3%.
Yeah, I'm at 3% with my house,
which is why I don't think I will ever sell this.
But if the numbers work out where you're actually making money, even if it's $200 a month, right?
It's still
that can change very quickly because you also have to remember somebody's building equity for you in another house, right? They're also paying off the borrowed equity. They're also paying off the house, which is the other equity that you get, and they're putting $200 in your pocket. So this is a concept of what Robert defines as an asset, right?
Yeah.
Because it's putting money into your pocket.
Exactly.
I agree with him to a point. I get we all buy a house, right? We all buy a house.
Yep.
But a house is not an asset. Everyone thinks of it as an asset. It's really not, because why? A house takes money out of your pocket every month. It doesn't put money into your pocket.
Yeah.
There are ways you can make your house an asset, right? Like you let's say you turn your basement into an apartment and you're getting income, right?
Yep.
Like I know my brother lives with me. I get income. My house has slightly become an asset, but to be an asset, it has to put more money into your pocket than it's taking out. So technically it's not.
That's why a lot of big guys go for like the apartment complexes.
Yes,
and stuff
right.
Like that.
So it can be scary to borrow a lot of money like that.
Yep.
But if you're borrowing a lot of money, right, and you borrow, I don't know, let's say you borrow $1 million, which to almost everyone is a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And you buy an apartment complex.
Yep.
And that apartment complex payment is, let's say, $250,000
a month.
But the apartment complex is generating for you $300,000 a month. You're making 50 grand.
Yeah. And you're still resolving that debt.
And you're still resolving that debt, and you're building equity. Not to mention the value of your real estate is going to go up.
It appreciates for sure. Yeah.
Yep. So you're leveraging debt to then make an income. And that's a, listen, don't just go buy an apartment complex, right? You have to build your financial literacy before you even try and get into that. Because if you try and get into that, you see these flippers, you see HGTV, you see these people on all social media platforms telling you do this, do that. Do not do anything until you've done your research, until you've built up your financial literacy, because you're going to screw yourself over, because guess what? This person's already an expert because they took the time and effort. Like,
Exactly.
listen, Warren Buffett wasn't rich from the get. He didn't come out of the womb with bags of money.
Nope.
Right? He had to work his way. He had to learn. He increased his financial literacy.
Yep.
And obviously he created Berkshire Hathaway, which is a very, very, very huge organization.
Yep.
I'll take one out of from DT. Huge.
Huge.
Yeah,
You know? And that was another thing too. Like I'm in the middle of reading Art of the Deal. And, you know, I have no excuse for not finishing it already. But to be completely honest, I read it at the bus stop when I'm waiting for the kids. I read it when I can.
Yep.
You know, and in between this and then work and whenever I'm off, you know.
Yep.
But it's really opens the eye to a lot of like business related stuff that, you know, the average person really wouldn't be reading.
Well, because if you think about it, right, all of us learn from school, we learn from our parents, and we learn from those we interact with.
Yeah, always other people.
If you look around you, how many of your friends are filthy rich? I don't have a single. I don't have a friend that's filthy.
I don't
rich.
have a filthy rich friend.
The closest person I have that has, I would say, the best financial literacy, probably the most money, is my mother-in-law. Right. Yeah. So I've been able to, that kind of started my journey a little bit and changing my perspective.
You started learning from her.
She thinks differently than I do.
Yeah.
But it's worked for her. So why wouldn't I try and, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You're like, what are you doing different than I'm doing?
You know what I mean?
Just, you know, like learn from them, copy off.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you know, that's why it's so important for you to build your own financial literacy, because like you have to remember, if you go to your parents, they can only give you the knowledge that they've obtained, that they've experienced. And I'm not saying that that's bad, but like if your parents aren't multimillionaires, then, you know, it's the same concept once again with building a house. I don't go ask an accountant how to build a house. I don't go ask, you know, a cashier how to build a house, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't know. Your parents only know so much, right? So nobody's going to advocate for you. You got to advocate for yourself. You got to invest in yourself first. The return will come.
Exactly.
If you invest in
yourself. I would probably say the most important thing before anybody would get started in this, and like what I've been trying to do and what you've been trying to do, like you have a goal. You know what your goal is.
Absolutely.
And you want to get it, and you're going for it. And I have a goal. I'm going to get there. I don't know what road it's going to be, but I don't give a fuck. No matter what, I'm going to get there.
Yep.
You know, and Vicky and I, we're a team. We've always been. When times get hard, we always say to each other, we'll make it happen. No matter what, we're going to make this happen. And that's always a plus.
Yeah.
But I would say the number one thing to add on top of that is to make sure you know what your goal is and what you want. Because sure, it'd be nice to have millions and whatnot, but like, is that your actual goal?
And not everybody wants that.
Some people, like I've said previous too, like everybody's definition of success is completely different.
Oh, 100%.
And that's one thing that I actually watched that Gary Vaynerchuk guy.
Yeah.
And he's actually a pretty good dude so far. And I will say, like, his advice is pretty simple and smart. And he got started with just tag sales.
Yes.
You know, like he used to go to these tag sales, find popular items. And like I said before, $100,000 a year is only about $273 a day. Yeah. And when you look at it that way, that's not that bad. When you break it up monthly, it's like $81.90 a month. And you're like, holy shit, that's a lot of money. And it is. But if you look at it in the smaller amount, it's really not that hard to achieve.
And that's just what you're willing to get there.
Exactly.
Breaking it down into something more easily achievable.
Yeah, because like what I have in my life and what you have in your life might be somebody's definition of straight success. That's why I always tend to go back to, you know, just being thankful and just, you know, feeling blessed for what you have. Because
absolutely.
Even just our two legs, some people don't have that, you know, and that's a very big goal.
Yes.
You know, so like when you talk about people's parents, you know, like, sure, they may not have been millionaires. Maybe they own their house outright, and that's, you know, maybe that's their child's form of success. Like, wow, I want to own a house one day. I mean, that's the American 100%. Dream, you know?
That's more me, obviously speaking from what I want to
exactly
achieve.
And that's where I want to be able to have, and I've always said, like, legacies, like, you know, and I said in the one episode, like, fuck your legacy. Like, that's true. Like, when it comes to like your own personal selfish reasons, that's what I was trying to get at. But you, like, when it comes to like when you have kids or a family, you want to be able to leave something behind, because and this is going to get deep, because you know me, I don't know how to not have a deep conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we come into this world with nothing.
Yeah.
And we leave this world with nothing.
Yes.
You can't, there's no container that you could put shit in and bring it with you.
You don't need money in where you're going.
None
you
of
know
this.
What I mean?
What matters is the impact that you had on the people around you and the people that you love. That's
Absolutely.
truly the only thing that matters once you're gone.
Yes.
Because 9 times out of 10, if you didn't really make a big splash, a lot of the times people are going to forget you.
Yeah.
Sure, maybe for that generation or that 2 generations right after you pass, you know what I'm saying? Some people might remember you. They'll put your picture up, and I'm not trying to get really fucking depressive right now.
No,
but
it's reality, right?
It's reality.
Think
your great
about
grandchildren.
stuff that we learned in history class. Every one of us, every single person has learned in history class. I know George Washington. I can't name a single other person that was around him in the Civil War that fought in other famous battles. They're nameless people.
And I'll even bring it there too. Jesus Christ, most popular person on this planet.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who Jesus Christ is, whether you believe in him or not. Look at the splash that guy made.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that just goes to show you, like, what matters in life sometimes is those small things. But if you can make a big splash, like what you and I want to do, like, we want to fucking cannonball this shit.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Like we want to be able to make sure that everybody knows, like, hey, look, remember that guy? He did this, you know, like,
well, that's a huge part of reading. Like, when you read about these people who are truly wealthy, and that's a whole nother definition that I can explain afterwards, that you need to understand, because there's a definition of what actual wealth is.
Yes, because people think wealth is just
charity.
riches.
Charity is huge. Money only amplifies who you are as a person.
Exactly right.
And when you give, you receive.
Absolutely.
And
I'm a huge giver.
That is
I can't help it. I enjoy it.
Yes.
I enjoy helping people. I enjoy, like, I get true satisfaction out of helping people.
Yes.
And I've actually got burnt a lot of times in my life, you know, in my past and whatnot. And you probably have too. Helping people out that you thought were good people, but then you realize
karma comes back to you regardless.
100%.
So that's what you like, you know. My goal, my personal goal, right? So actually, before I go into the personal goal, I really want to just touch upon the wealth, right?
Yes.
So
the wealth.
So people think that, okay, this person has millions of dollars, they're wealthy. Are they though? Right? Because at the end of the day, well, they're making $1 million, but how much are they spending? How much are they saving? Right? If somebody has $5 million, but they're burning through that like crazy, and they have those bad foundational habits, they're not wealthy. They are considered rich because they have $5 million, but realistically, they're not wealthy. True wealth is when everything's covered and you have so much extra coming in.
And that's
right.
And that is my goal, man. My goal is to be literally my main goal. Even getting a real estate property, which is one of my goals.
Yeah.
It's
and one really good way to build
exactly
wealth.
And it's not now getting a real estate property, and I can't wait to get that first one because it's going to be huge. But I will say, like, the bigger picture, my biggest goal is just to be financially free so I could help as many people as I can.
Yeah.
Like, that is my ultimate goal. So I could set that example for my children and my family and their children to just be a good person and to be willing to help people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's really what this life is about.
Yes.
You know,
and that's partially mine too. Like, I want to build financial freedom and generational wealth.
Absolutely.
I want my children and their children's children to, if they don't want to, they don't have to work. But not only that, they can just chase whatever dream they want
and that's
do anything. But also, there are 100% going to be values that I will instill of giving back. So, like, you know what I mean? So, like, that, and that's the thing that I've learned right through my life is there is so many ways to help people.
Absolutely.
Money is one aspect, and money's one way.
Yep.
And a lot of ways could be starting a charity, opening, like when you walk into a hospital or you go to a museum, you see a wing that's donated. That's someone really wealthy. Yes. Do they receive some sort of benefit from that?
Yep.
Absolutely. But they're also doing it. And now how many people have gained something, right?
Absolutely.
There's a wing in a museum where people can learn about something.
And that's the one thing I wanted to mention too, actually, now that you bring it up. It's true though. Like, you go to parks and there's benches that are, you know, they're dedicated to somebody who has maybe done great things, hospitals, stuff like that, you know, and people like to demonize people like, you know, Donald Trump and other, you know, wealthy people. But when you look at the wealth aspect of these rich people, that right there shows you, because before Donald Trump ran for president and before we got to know who he really was, I was like, oh, this guy's sort of pompous. He's a pompous, rich dude. A lot of them have the same. But when you look at their record and the rich people that do the good things, that are wealthy like that, sure, some people do good things to make themselves look better. That happens a lot too. Where they're just throwing money, but like, oh, that's a good thing. Let me throw that there because it makes me look good.
Yeah.
Is it a good act? Absolutely. Does it still make them a good person? No, but who are you to judge? That's for the guy upstairs.
Yeah.
They did a good act. It helped people out. That's good,
Yep.
Like with me, like I've always been that helper, you know what I'm saying? And I think we all are in that aspect in our friends group. You know what I'm saying? It's just helping people.
Yeah.
And you're right.
There's a lot of ways to help people.
Absolutely. Because
so many.
Even just this podcast.
Yeah.
It's just this podcast. After every podcast, towards the end, I always ask if there's anything, somebody wants to plug in. If I could let my platform be used to help somebody, like with my story.
Yeah.
Like I just got done recording my story.
Yeah.
And
if it even helps one person.
Exactly.
There you go.
And I'm not gonna lie, it was very uncomfortable. There was a lot of things that I brought up. There was a lot of things that I did not bring up because it's not all my story. It's intertwined with other people. And I'm giving them that respect.
You're saying from your perspective, this is what happened.
Exactly.
If your perspective helps someone or prevents someone or whatever it
100%.
that's all that matters.
And that's why I've always said, like, eventually, I don't know how it's going to happen. I am going to create some sort of either organization or a foundation, and I want to call it Hooten's Helpers. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
And I just want to figure out, but it's a very small baby steps concept. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But that's another thing I don't want to make any money off of it, really. Like I just like to help people because
every journey begins with the first step. Right?
Exactly. And if you start something like that with good intentions, I don't see how it could fail. No. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like somebody very dear and close to me was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer. And then at the same time, right before that, one of my coworkers was diagnosed with breast cancer. Yeah. And I bought a bunch of t-shirts and hoodies to help donate. But I'm also sitting here because somebody very close to me was diagnosed with it. And me and my health research, I dive deep, dude. I find different studies in different countries as much as I can, as much as my resources will allow me, because we all know the internet. They still sort of control what you could see and whatnot, and what you can research.
Yeah.
I've dived deep into like articles and books and stuff that, from newspapers years ago. And I find different holistic ways, because that's another thing that I wanted to get into. And I mentioned it earlier before we started recording. I want to get into holistic nutritionist, certification, because I've been doing the nutritionist thing for a while.
Yeah. And
that's another thing that I do, like you said, ways to help people without money.
Yeah.
You know how many people come to me just about health advice and nutrition advice? Yeah. And it humbles me every time, because I don't see myself as anywhere near a professional.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? You have to think like every single successful person in anyone's perspective, right, all started where everyone else is.
Exactly.
Yes, okay, some people, obviously their families may have done a large jump for them.
They've done a lot of the work beforehand. But you have to start somewhere.
But there are so many countless examples of people who might have been homeless and now are billionaires.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you can do it. You are the only one who sets yourself back.
Yep. And that's one thing that I've talked to Andy about, who I've had here on the podcast. And I think I'm going to be recording with him later for another episode about making podcasts. So it's going to be a podcast, how to make a podcast.
And like, you know what? Listen, like, you started with the podcast, you started doing the podcast.
Yep.
The thing, like a good example is like Mr. Beast got popular through YouTube, right?
Yeah.
It's not like he made one video and then was instantly famous.
No,
it doesn't work that way.
You gotta stay consistent.
You have to stay consistent, and that's what you've been doing.
Yeah.
And the more consistent you stay, the more likely you are to actually be successful in it.
Look, I mean, and that goes for finances too. We could tie that in too. Like no matter where you get started in life, as long as you get started with it on the right path.
The important part is to start.
Exactly.
There are so many people who talk and they just talk out their ass, and they never actually take the steps to start. If you're the person that can take the steps to start, whether it's just reading a book, whatever, and you continue
that's how I got started.
That's
just literally reading that book.
You already have jumped to the next tier of, you have much more chance of being successful in your own mind. And it really just depends what that is. Everyone has to consider that. You know what I mean?
They always say, like, the big investors and the investors that are making all these, big things now where they started, the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is literally
starting,
just doing it.
Like Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
I mean, he just started.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Gates just started. You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
questionable. He might have stole stuff.
yeah, he might have stole stuff, but still, like he started, even though it maybe what the
And he's,
method is questionable.
yeah,
Donald Trump, he maybe his dad
a
did
little
some
bit. Yeah,
stuff,
he gave him
but
3 million,
but
which is still a decent amount.
even
But look what he turned
still,
it into.
he turned 3 million. It was a
Billions.
starting
Yep.
point. If right now Donald Trump had 2 million, you could look at
Yep.
that as
But you want to
okay,
know what? That's
loss.
where I could even go into, and you could even go into too, because you've had a rough past too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Growing
yeah,
up,
yeah.
and we've both come from pretty fucked up situations, but
Yep.
look what we did. Where maybe Trump's father gave him 3 million, or maybe somebody else's parents give them money, or whatever they have to, or a house or physical things. We got life lessons given to us at an early age.
Learned a lot of what not to do.
Exactly. And you want to know what? As fucked up as it sounds, I've always said you take that negative and you use it to help yourself and to better yourself and the people around you.
Oh,
That's a
absolutely.
true example.
Yep.
That's a true example. The shit that I've gone through, the shit that you've gone through, mate, we weren't handed millions to make what, but look
No.
where we're at today. Like I
Yeah.
said before, people define success differently. To some people we're successful and we want more, so we
Yeah.
could help those people see like, hey,
Yeah.
look, you could even do more.
Yeah.
I love to try my best to be that example.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's why, like, you can't just look at someone who's like very, very rich
No.
and think, oh, wow, like, they've got it easy. Because just like poor people have a set of problems, so do rich people.
Oh, absolutely.
Because now the coin flips and it's not how do I make money? It's how do I manage my money so I keep it.
Exactly.
That is a full-time endeavor in
because
itself
just as much
that
as
people
you make
don't think
it,
about.
you could lose it a lot quicker.
Well, think about lottery winners, right? How many people win the lottery?
Classic
and then,
example.
Because you have to remember, money is a finite thing, right?
Yep.
If you're not investing it to grow it.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
So if you don't invest it to grow it, you just got handed a lump, and
That's
they're
like
going to keep pulling from the pile. The pile's going to keep getting
it's
smaller.
literally like giving a kid a bunch of candy and telling them eat just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit a day.
One candy a day and not paying
happening.
attention. The whole pile will be gone in a day.
Yep, absolutely.
So if you're the person that wins $5 million from the lottery and the first thing you go buy is a Lamborghini, well, there's like a fifth of it,
exactly.
if not more.
Not more. And I tell you now, I don't really play the lotto, but if I ever won it, the first thing I'm doing is hiring a financial advisor.
I highly recommend for anyone who does, if you do happen to win any large sum of money, you need to really do your research on like what you're supposed to do, because there are steps that you need to do to ensure that you keep that money. And then once you have those people, you really need to like the thing is, and this is another thing I've learned from reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, is like you have to build a team.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you only know so much. That's why those very, 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 very wealthy, rich people have lawyers.
Yeah,
accountants.
Absolutely. They have a team of people.
They have a team of people.
And I would even go to adventure as saying, I mean, like, yeah, they made a show about it, but like Entourage, I didn't really get into that show. But it's true though. Like that Bedros Keuilian guy, I actually got his book. I have to get it started.
Yeah.
If you ever watch him much, but
I've watched Entourage here and there, so you would have to just tell me which person.
Well, the Bedros Keuilian guy, he wasn't a part of the whole Entourage. He's a different motivational speaker guy, where he's all just about like man up is his book, like fucking be a man.
Semi-familiar,
very good dude, very good insights and whatnot. But I will say he's right though. Like where you say like you have to have a financial team, that's always true.
Yeah,
and me being health and wellness and mindset, because like that's my whole background.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I will actually go as far as saying you need yourself an entourage, because men, we're not meant to just be alone as the only male. You know what I'm saying? Like when people say alpha male, be an alpha male, that's true. You could be an alpha male, but you need other alphas and other men in your life as well.
Yeah.
You can't just be the only dude.
No.
That's essential for our mindset.
Yeah.
You need like-minded men to be around you.
Yes.
To build this team.
And that's also the concept that comes back to the financial aspect too, is you should surround yourself with like-minded people financially. If you're around the person who constantly wants to eat out, what do? You go out and eat out with them. And you're spending that money too.
Bad financial habits, you're going to wind up having bad financial habits or not good.
Yep.
And I forget, there was another person that was talking about it too, and it made total sense that if you they did a study where you take a high performer at any job, and you sit them next to somebody who's not a high performer, their workload or their work success rate goes down by like 40%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you take that high performer and you put them next to a higher performer,
you almost
than
get
them,
like a competition, right?
Exactly.
Right? Because
you
now
go
they're
up
both
about
performing.
15%.
Yeah.
And that just goes to around you, like what the saying, the company you keep, like it's true.
Yep.
It is true.
It's
like
extremely true.
Like if you keep very positive, like-minded people around you, you're going to generally stay that way. You're going to help each other build up. Why would you ever be jealous or envious of a friend who's doing well? Yeah. That's one thing I never understood.
Well, you also shouldn't. If anything,
you should be inspired.
You should be yes, exactly.
Yeah, inspired and
get inspired
root
by
with
that,
them the whole entire way.
But that's where you have to have that self-reflection and see what are your goals, not just financially, but obviously in other aspects too. But financially, like you have to, you need to set some sort of goal, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it can be a simple goal. It could literally be like you want to have an apartment and a place to live, and you're good. Like if you achieve that, you've achieved your financial.
But once
goal.
You achieve it, you need the next goal.
Absolutely. I don't think you should ever stop.
No.
You always should achieve to grow, but like that's where these items of importance come into play, right? Like if you're a car person and all you care about is having the nicest cars, well then financially you would guide your money towards that.
Exactly.
Do I recommend that for me personally from my perspective? No, because that's not a car is not an asset unless you use it as an asset, right?
Exactly. How you make money off of having a financial car. Like some people will rent them out.
So many different ways that you can, right? Like if you like, okay, let's say you have like a cool collection of cars. Maybe you make a little museum. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or you go to like, I know there's competitions and stuff like that. You can bring your car to.
Loaning your car out.
Yep.
All these
I
other
know there's
ways.
that app now that they use. I think my brother used it when he was up here. He got a rental. It was a private rental. I'm like, wait, they have private rentals? He goes, yeah, it's basically Airbnb for your car now.
Yeah.
It's Turo or something like that.
I think I did hear of that.
So if you have a nicer car, you don't even need a nice car. He was driving around a shitbox Honda. Yep. And somebody's renting them out. Yep. I'm like, you know what? And I immediately thought, as soon as I sat in that car, I'm like, this is a private rental? He goes, yeah. He goes, we just rented it from somebody for 4 days. I'm like, how much are they making off of this? He goes, well, I paid about, I think it was $290 after tax. I'm like, after 4 days? I was like, that is way more than what this car payment would be.
Yeah. So
like, good for them.
Right. So an example of, the way I've started to flip, right, when I started down this financial journey, right, is I started trying to build my knowledge.
Yeah.
Then I started trying to build knowledge and foundation, basically kind of tie in. I was trying to build my foundation. My overall goal is I've taken on more of the entrepreneurial mindset.
That's where I'm at.
That's where I want to be.
Yep.
I want to be an entrepreneur.
Yep.
I also do work a full-time job, but that's how I foresee myself going and building and achieving that overall goal of the financial freedom, generational wealth.
Yes.
That I want to have. Yep. Right. And there's obviously so many different ways you can do that, right?
There's so many different avenues.
So you take the car example, right? So let's say you went and you took a small business loan for 50 grand, right?
Yep.
You go and you buy, let's say, well, now it'd be a little more difficult because cars have gotten really expensive.
Yeah.
But let's say you buy a bunch of shit boxes, right?
Yep.
And
but like a little fleet of shit boxes.
You're renting them out, right?
Yep.
And whatever your loan payment is, let's say it's $1,000 a month.
If you even have a loan at that point.
If you have a loan. But so there's also going to be the other added factors, right? Because now you have car insurance for all the cars.
Yep.
Then you have possible maintenance on the cars.
Yep.
You have
business
gas
insurance
for the vehicles, business insurance. So these are all other aspects you would have to take into account. But essentially, if the overall number that you have coming in is higher than what you have going out, you're in a good spot.
Yeah.
Right. So that could be another business opportunity that maybe you do. So finding opportunities is going to be the key, right?
Yep.
So like you have to, it's no different that we say this all the time with like dating and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
If you're not in a good headspace, you're not ready to be out there.
Absolutely
you can try,
not,
but guess what? It's not going to work out.
It's 9 times out of 10 you're going to fail, and then you're going to be pissed off at yourself.
Exactly.
But you're not taking care of yourself.
So if financially
you're in somebody else.
Financially, if you're in a good spot, now you have that key to start finding those opportunities, because making your money work for you is one aspect, right?
Yes.
That's one important part. But if you're good there, well, now you can start moving on to other ventures and start doing other things. But
exactly.
I wouldn't say like overload your plate, but now that's another opportunity for you to maybe like, hey, maybe I need to start, like, for example, you're doing the podcast. it technically is, it's like a side hustle, right?
Yeah.
If it makes money, great. If it
Yep.
doesn't, you're doing
Yeah.
it because you enjoy it.
Yeah,
And
this is
that's the
strictly
key.
just because I enjoy it, and I love every single person who's even willing to give me a listen.
Yeah,
Like
right.
I appreciate all of them. You know, if you hit me up in an email or even a direct message, or
Yeah.
if you have my phone number, you hit me up. I'm always willing to talk about anything. I'm always willing to
Yeah.
help, like I said. And to
it
me,
can
I
be a great
created this
catalyst,
exactly. So I created this podcast with a little bit of fire and a little bit of inspiration from the book. And when I'm like, all right, let me try something different. This is way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So when I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty fun. It's enjoyable at the same time as if this helps somebody, then great.
Yep.
And because I love to help somebody, if somebody was like, hey, can you next time on this podcast, can you just like give me a shout out for this? Absolutely. Just send it to me. I'll shout it out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to charge you, but hey, listen, if you're going to kick back, you're going to pay me for it or whatever and make it a regular thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. It could
You know what
be,
I'm saying? Like,
it could be something that started as for fun and it continues to be fun.
exactly.
But then also on the flip side, from the obviously, because this is the financial, we're talking financial stuff,
yeah,
could turn into a profitable business.
absolutely.
Right? Like
Absolutely.
you look at Joe Rogan is a phenomenal example of
huge,
it.
huge
Right?
inspiration. That guy is
You
great.
know what I mean? He's done so many different things.
Yep. Oh yeah.
You
It's
look
not
at someone,
just a podcast. Yeah.
like Rob Deerdeck. Like,
Yep.
you know,
He's another one. Huge.
they're extremely smart individuals, and if you can emulate anything from them, do it.
Absolutely. And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot just by watching them when it comes to certain things and all this equipment. And that will be actually mentioned in the next podcast that I record. Mm-hmm. But like, honestly, like it's been huge, you know, just starting somewhere and like just talking finances, like you said, like we have to start somewhere. Yes. You know, and like you create like different ideas and in your head, they'll never come to fruition if you don't try.
Yeah,
you have to try.
Because honestly, what's the worst thing that happens? You fail. Okay?
You fail, and
but
failing is totally a part of the program.
More than likely, at least hopefully, you should learn something from that.
That's the main thing.
When you learn, you grow, and like,
yep.
It's the same. Like it was the same concept that Mr. Beast talked about when he was talking about his YouTube stuff. I saw a video on it, and he was like, "Listen. If you make 100 videos over however long it takes you, and every single video you try and improve upon something, you should see that by the time you make 100 videos, you should see progress. Right? Yeah. So as long as you're learning, you're growing, you're changing, you're doing, and
if I went back and I watched the very first video that I recorded, like the intro, I'd probably catch myself doing things that I don't do now because I'm just a little bit more comfortable.
Yes, exactly. You should get better every single time.
Absolutely.
And that comes down to you're researching your finance. That comes down to changing those habits, right? Because now maybe you'll have that second thought when you're like, oh, I really want coffee, whatever. You'll be like, nope, I have it at home. I can make it at home.
Exactly.
Now I saved that $1. I saved that $2, which, like I said,
it adds up.
It really does.
It definitely adds up.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Cool. I mean, that's pretty much we hit a decent amount here. I mean, I'm pretty sure much we hit. Yeah, we hit credit scores. We hit trying to get out of debt.
Did you want to talk about like LLCs and stuff? We can if you
know what? Yeah, actually, that's here at the end. I wanted to talk about LLCs because I have an LLC for this. Yeah. So technically, this is a business.
Yes.
It's not a profitable business yet, but it also doesn't cost me anything at right now besides my time.
Yes.
I made the initial expense. You know what I'm saying? Which eventually maybe I'll write it off. Maybe I won't. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Some people would think, oh, well, as a business savvy or business smart person, you should probably write it off. But to me, I'm like, you know what? This is all stuff that I enjoy. I don't see it as like a business yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I know there's people who talk about creating trusts. And that's something that I wanted to pick your brain about if you know anything about trusts.
Yeah.
Because like I've always talked about generational wealth. We've talked about generational wealth. And they've always said that a trust is very essential in the area of generational wealth.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, like if you want to pass things on and have no responsibility for your kids to get fucked over by our government and taxes and shit like that.
Well, the trust, it's more beneficial than just like an LLC. You can incorporate LLCs into your trust.
Exactly.
Essentially, you're like almost building like this network and building that safety net, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying that if you have a trust, there's going to be no payment and there's no taxes. Like there's ways to have no taxes, but it's also a temporary thing and it has to be a consistent snowballing thing, right?
Okay.
Like you'll hear like Donald Trump, I forget if he sold something or he ended up getting paid by the government. I think it was like $700 million or something like that, because he paid like no taxes.
Yeah.
And there's
he
ways
always said that if he could find a way to
that.
not pay taxes, he's not going to pay taxes because of the loopholes that are there. And he knew
there's
they were there.
You can depreciate assets to offset your costs.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's stuff that you want to do. And that's why these individuals, so like you're going to hear a lot about trust, right? If you're on social media, you're going to see a lot about reels. IULs and like, oh, you got to get the IUL. And IUL is a life insurance policy that you can essentially borrow money against, right?
Yeah.
But the difference with the IUL is, right, if you're borrowing 10 grand, that 10 grand is still there growing.
Yes.
Right. Where like if I borrow 10 grand from a bank, I just am owing money on that. Right.
Yep.
But here's the thing is like, you have to remember that when they're talking about the trust, when they're talking about the IULs, these people that are going to be incorporating these things, they're 10 years down the road. Right. Mm-hmm. They're people who have a lot of money and are trying to do what we talked about, which is the flip side.
Exactly.
Is manage their money so they're keeping more of it.
Exactly.
These are tools to do that. If you are Joe Schmo with $1,000, you do not need an IUL. There is literally no benefit to you. You're just screwing yourself.
It's only
over.
when you have a big chunk of money to start with.
Build your foundations. Work your way to that. Once you have the LLC, right? For you, getting a trust right now would probably not be beneficial, right? No. Because like right now your LLC is not generating any income.
Yeah.
Let's say your LLC, your podcast starts generating a ton of money a month, 5 grand, 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
Now, not only are you doing the LLC for your podcast, but you talked about the real estate you want to get to. So now you have an LLC
for the real estate,
that is for the real estate. And now you're doing a bunch of different LLCs to own different real estates. And now you've got a business.
Yeah.
You know, John Hooten's got a large
organization.
Business, right? You've really basically got an organization. And now you've also got Hooten LLC for Hooten's Helpers. Which, okay, maybe you're giving all that money back to charity, but like doing that stuff offsets costs for your real estate LLC or your podcast LLC. And this is where a tax expert and accountant can really start to help you manage that money. So now, okay, yeah, you may have had to, with your LLC, pay a shit ton of taxes, right? But actually all your houses cost so much and you've been depreciating them. So let's say you were making 50 grand. Well, guess what? You don't have to pay any tax on that 50 grand because you depreciated it through your homes.
Yeah.
Or you depreciated it
through some sort of loss.
Yes, you're showing on paper a loss. That's what Donald Trump does.
Yeah.
That's why he doesn't pay taxes. That's why he makes a lot of money.
And that's why he told everybody right out in front. He goes, yeah, I do that because it's a loophole that's there. And as long as it's there, I'm going to keep doing it.
Very wealthy person does it.
Yep. I mean, Dave Chappelle had a skit about it.
If they tell you that they don't, they're lying.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it literally doesn't make sense.
Yep.
They don't become that rich by giving away money to the government.
No.
It doesn't happen.
Not at all.
So those foundational parts, the trust and everything is really good. And you should definitely consult with lawyers when you get to that point.
When you have that.
But like when you see, like, I told you I'm on TikTok. I watch a lot of finance stuff through TikTok. Like there are people who you can follow who will explain these concepts, but you have to remember the people that a lot of times they're talking about are not you. You're at the beginning stage.
Exactly.
Right? You have to build up to it. Like, could an individual leave their house in a trust?
Yeah.
Yeah, they could. Excuse me. But you can form a trust at any point.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to rush. You know what I mean? There's no reason to do things. I think you need to, it comes back down to building those foundations, doing your research.
Yep.
You know, like for example, so my plan, right? My plan is to get into real estate.
Yes.
More specifically, now you also have to remember real estate has so many different facets.
Yes,
right?
It does.
Because there's single family, there's apartments, there's trailer parks.
Yep.
There's vacation rentals. There's
commercial
whatever.
Rentals.
Commercial rentals.
I'm
commercial
more of the
land.
vacation rental.
I personally wanted to start with the vacation rental. Will
Yeah.
I stop at vacation rentals?
No,
Hell
I'm not
no.
going to stop. No.
Hell no. More likely, I will gravitate from one facet to another
Knowing
within
myself,
real estate,
I'm the same way.
and I will probably be in everything if I can be. But also, I don't want to bite off more than I can chew.
Yeah, I tend to dip my foot in, and then if it feels right, I fucking dive.
But like, there's a lot of awesome things you can do before you even get to the trust, you can do with your LLC. And you mentioned some of the write-offs.
Yep.
You have to remember that, like with an LLC, and obviously you want to consult your accountant, you want to consult your tax person.
Exactly.
And realistically, like, it's nothing against like TurboTax and all those online things, but that requires you to do it yourself unless you're going to that person in person and you have a good rapport with them. That's great, but I don't recommend doing the online taxing yourself because you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities.
You need a real person and a real professional to, because like we go to an accountant for our taxes.
Yes.
Not like they're crazy detailed or difficult, because like even though I have an LLC, I haven't done any taxes for it because I don't generate any money.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I know you have to make a certain amount of money to even really qualify to do your taxes. Really, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know, but
you can write off a lot of the stuff before you technically make money.
Exactly.
But you basically, your business has to be building and has to eventually start. You can't just not make money and be like, oh, I'm just going to write all this stuff off and it's not going to come back on
pointless.
me. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if that were the case, everyone would do it, right? Everyone would own probably 500 LLCs and pay no taxes. That doesn't work. Like even Donald Trump could technically potentially have to pay taxes. It's, if you think about it as like a loop, right? Right. If you're constantly making money, but purchasing things that depreciate the money that you're making, well, now you're in that loop of not paying tax, right?
Exactly.
But if you go, okay, now I have a net worth of $35 million.
Yep.
I've decided I'm cool with that. I want to get out.
Yep.
And I'm going to end up selling everything and I'm going to have, let's say, $70 million. And then I'm going to pay all the tax on it. And I'm going to be left with the 35 million, right? Now, when you get out, you're going to pay the tax because you're not continuing that cycle. But these individuals continue that cycle, have trusts that get left to their, children, whoever.
Yep.
And then essentially there's different things, with the trust. I know they've made some changes. There's like a trust called the irrevocable trust. I can't remember necessarily the super specifics with it. I would highly recommend researching it. I would have to look it up again.
Yeah.
But essentially it's like, if I remember correctly, and don't quote me on it, you should, like I said, do the research. There are ways where the taxes that you don't pay, like the tax percentage, I think that like they would have had to pay if they sold it. You as the kid, you're kind of like starting from like the starting point. It's like you have to pay on like when you get it going forward kind of thing. So you kind of like, there's kind of like a picking up where they left off, but you're not responsible for the past.
Well, that's quite nice.
So you know what I mean? There's a lot of different advantages, but you also, like I said, you have to be at certain points, but the LLCs are a great way. So the whole point of an LLC, right? And there's even different parts of that, because right, there's LLC, there's sole proprietorship, there's partnerships, there's S corp. There's different ways that you are taxed depending on what you do. So you have to speak with your accountant and see what is going to be the most advantageous for me with what I'm currently making. Like if you're not making like 40,000 plus a year, you probably shouldn't do an S corp, right? Because you're going to actually end up paying more taxes doing that.
I have mine as an individual.
Yes.
Sole proprietorship.
Sole proprietorship. And even with those, with the LLCs and stuff, you have to be careful. So a great example, I think it's considered a sole proprietorship. You look at a private doctor's office, right?
Yeah.
When the doctor works for his own private office, he gets taxed as an employee, but he also gets taxed as the business. He's actually paying 60% tax. They actually pay more tax than you or I as the individual person as part of an employment.
Why would they do that?
That's the whole thing. So, because a lot of times, a doctor is a great example, right? They want to be involved in the practice, right?
Yeah.
So, and you can do that, but just know when you do that, you're paying more tax because you're taxed twice.
Yeah.
You're taxed as the employee,
and that's why,
you're
like,
taxed as
it sounds lazy, but like, what would be great is just having the blind ownership.
That's
you know what I'm saying? Like those are the best ways. That is
the more beneficial part to do. Because, and that's how you get to those goals of achieving financial freedom, right?
Yeah.
Like think about large corporations, Google, Verizon, whoever, right? The founder doesn't run the company anymore. They hire a CEO to run it.
Absolutely.
Right? But they're getting cut a check.
Absolutely.
They don't just sit there. It's not like they gave up and now they're poor and homeless. Like, no,
they might be a shareholder or a stakeholder.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So
and that's what you have to loosen.
Sort of...
If you want true financial freedom, like even us, right, going into the real estate game.
Yep.
Right. you could manage your properties. You could do Airbnb. Will you see a greater return? Yeah, you might, depending on how well you navigate it.
Yep.
And, there's a lot of factors with that, right?
Yep.
But if you hire a established property management company who, let's say, has been in business for 90 years,
Yep.
they know the area extremely well, you're probably in the long run going to make more money doing that. And not only that, you get your time back, because that's the key for all these extremely wealthy people, very wealthy, rich people, right?
Yeah, because you're working your ass off in the beginning.
More time, because that's the only thing you can't get more of.
And that's the only thing you take with you when you go. Like I said earlier, like that's it, man. You can't take nothing with you. It's about the time that you spend here while you're here.
Exactly. So having that time, having that financial freedom, that's more important. And then that's why it's important. That's why I say with the LLC, like having those having those people paying for it, right, is more important, because you're actually going to benefit yourself, because you have to remember, this person, that's all they do, right? It's the same concept of going back to a construction worker. I don't want an artist working on construction on my house, right?
Absolutely.
They don't know what the hell they're doing.
Yep.
I want the professional. So why would you not apply those concepts to a tax professional, right?
That's true. I mean, if you think about it, what you're talking about is basically just managing a project.
Project
manager.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it that way. Like, you're finding the right people for the right jobs in the right areas to do exactly what you need to be done, because you may not be qualified in that certain area, but you know somebody who is.
Everybody has technical skills, right?
Absolutely.
There's a reason people are in certain jobs, and that's what they want to do. And it's not that they can't do what we're talking about with maybe going for generational wealth, but you also have to remember, like, if everyone had that drive, everyone would be Donald Trump, right? And be super filthy rich. Not everyone wants to take the time, effort, energy into being that.
I don't know if there's statistics or if there's been studies, but I would probably say we'll call them go-getters. Probably, if we're lucky, maybe 10% of our country are go-getters.
Probably even way lower.
You're
probably looking at, like,
and I'm giving a lot of credit.
Maybe even 0.05%.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And here we are. Right now, like, we're the average Joes, but we have that fire and that drive within us.
Oh, absolutely.
And if we could help awaken people to get that fucking drive.
My wife jokes all the time, like, when I want something, I get it.
Yeah. And
there's a reason.
And that's a funny thing, because, my wife is the same way.
Yeah.
When I get an idea, she's like, well, hold on. She thinks tomorrow it's going to happen.
Yeah. And I'm like, no. My brain is on overdrive.
That's the way I am. So you and
everything is starting to be laid out. I'm building the foundation of what I want to do.
Exactly.
I will get into real estate. I will make money.
Like,
I
you
will
and I
become
are the same
because here's the thing, right? It's if you take the concept, the positivity of what we're speaking about.
Yes.
And you turn the flip side and you turn it into the negativity. If I woke up every day and looked in the mirror and said, I'm ugly, I'm horrible, I'm fat, I'm disgusting, nobody loves me, and I did it every single day. When you're going to become ugly,
horrible, fat,
you will believe what you're putting out in the universe. So if my goal, if anyone out there, if your goal is to be rich, right, you have to start saying, I'm going to be rich.
Yep.
Not hopefully, maybe one day I will, I guess, possibly. No, I will be rich. I will buy real estate. I will make a lot of money. It's going to happen because I'm going to make it happen, because I'm the only one who can. Yeah. Right.
Just like his Yoda said, there is no try.
Only do.
Yep. It's spot on, man. It's spot on.
Yeah.
And so this is more of like a financial and a morale booster if we could help people out. So this has been great. I think we're at we're a little over an hour now. So this has been awesome. Thank you, Rik.
No problem. Honestly. Like I said, I could talk about this all day. And, listen, hey, people are listening. If they start having questions, they start wanting topics. Listen, I'm not the end all be all or know everything.
But if you need somewhere to start,
but
I'm saying,
you know what I mean? Like, I can do research. I can try and give my opinion, talk about topics, whatever. Saying, you know what I mean? So if people reach out to you and they want more, they want another part 2 and us to hit certain points, let us know. You know what I mean?
I said, like with my story, when I recorded my story, it was literally like I did a little video in between that I'm going to release after part 2, because I'll probably release part 2 later today, of filling in the gaps. So if anybody has any questions after watching this and they want us to fill in the gaps, we could do a fill in the gaps episode.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we could do that too, because there's probably a lot of shit that we probably left out too.
I've had numerous friends. One of our close friends, Nick, come to me and ask me, because I did a debt consolidation that worked for me that he wanted to try for him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so it's like,
There's nothing wrong with asking for help.
Yeah.
Man, there's absolutely nothing wrong.
No.
I've always said, and I always say it in almost every one of my episodes too, like if anybody feels like it's the end of the road, just know it's not. Just know it's not. Where there is a will, there is always a way.
And it's almost better that you hit rock bottom, because guess what? The only way to go, it's cliche, is up, right?
Yep.
But it's the truth, right? Yeah. Like, hey, if you're at rock bottom, like there are people that as social experiments do that who are very wealthy, and they build wealth, right? Yep. Because now you're forced. Honestly, you're probably going to be your best at rock bottom because now you don't have a choice.
Exactly. You get rid of all that other unnecessary shit because now you have no choice but to focus on what you have to do.
And it can be not only applied financially, but it can be applied in any aspect.
In health.
And literally everything we've talked about it can be applied anywhere, because once again, like building your knowledge, working on you, building those foundations is going to help you achieve whatever you want. And like, if you really, truly, not only financially want to achieve something, but in life want to achieve something, you're the only one who can do that and change it and start it. And, as long as you get started, you will get there.
Exactly. And that's where I always put my spin on it, because, I'm a health and wellness guy. If you get your body right, then your mind gets right.
Yeah.
And when your mind gets right, that's when you're mentally capable of doing whatever you put your mind to.
Everyone can do anything.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And there's nothing that makes you different than anybody else. You look at somebody on TV and whatnot, you're like, oh, well, I'll never get to that. It's like, no. Yeah. If you put in the work and you do it and you don't give up, it's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to happen.
And that's why these books that we've talked about are so important.
Absolutely.
Because like I said, there's no magic check in there. There's no like, here, go to the spot, dig here. There's an X. You're going to find buried treasure.
Yeah.
It's literally changing your perspective, trying to think like these people do. And when you start doing that, your world truly does change.
It does change, man.
And you can change a lot. You'd be amazed. Think about how much happens in a year. Right?
That's true too.
Like a lot happens in a year. It feels like it always goes very quick. But then when you start, I mean, hey, everyone has social media. You start scrolling back through what happened in a year. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That I can't believe we're already in September, but look how much has happened.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And imagine if you spent that whole year being productive and doing exactly what you need to do to get where you want to go. Like you're unstoppable.
Persistence is key.
Yep. Absolutely. Is key. All right, Rick, I think we're going to end it there. And it's been awesome episode, dude. Man.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely maybe do a fill in the gaps episode if anybody has any questions.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we can always touch it, but listen, give us ideas. Like,
absolutely,
if you want us to keep talking about financial stuff, like,
absolutely,
we can.
You're going to be a regular anyways because it's your second time on here.
Yeah.
And you and I are so much alike. We could probably talk about whatever.
Yeah. Literally anything.
Hell yeah, man. All right, man. Love you.
All right. Love you too,
See
bud. Yeah.